Henrik and I wanted to kind of draw a conclusion. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there was about 100 people registered for online conversations as well. And so I wanted Henrik, who was leading an online group with people from far away from here, to tell us how it was.
Yeah, I will say it like this. It's easy when you go to a COP, when people from all around the world is gathering, and you get into like a bubble. And you think this is the whole world, and you can sort of focus on small things and how you phrase things in documents and so on. And I think you can also do it as a group from faith. But I think that one of the more important parts that we bring, added value, so to say, to the COPs, is that we actually are a communion, people from all over the world, from different ways of life. And we have to remember that also when we are at COP. So for me to actually be here, but also digitally to have a discussion with people in Australia, South Africa, in USA, in one over the screen, was also reminding me of the importance from faith communities to bring the voices. We often talk about advocacy from our constituencies, to bring the voices of those who are in our community. And that is something that I take with me, and also from what we heard earlier today. And especially at this COP, when there's so much at stake, when we need higher ambitions, we also need from faith communities to have this kind of ethical driving force, but also remember all of those that are sort of locked out with a kind of invisible wall because of COVID, because of finance, because of traveling. Their voices must also be heard. And as people of faith, I think that is one thing that we have to do. We have to bring all the voices. And I often use as a picture for this, and it's at every table where you make decisions, you should have 3 empty chairs. And those empty chairs should represent the poor people of the world with no voice at the COPs, with the future generations, and with the nature, Mother Earth, the creation itself, all the species on Earth that don't have a voice. Those chairs should always be taken into account when you take decisions. And I think that is our role as faith communities, to bring that voices, to bring those 3 empty chairs. So that's rather personal from my digital discussions, but I think that is something I bring with me to not focus just on this bubble that we are in Glasgow over these 2 weeks. It's also to bring all the others. Thank you.
With these chairs that he just spoke so eloquently about, we're going to gather the voices of all of you and bring that to the UNFCCC in the form of a call from this interfaith gathering tonight, who has the vocation of bringing everybody else to the COP. So thank you for being here, and the world is yours, Francis. And Francis has been an amazing little ferry behind everything. So really, really, thank you so much for your help.
So on behalf of all of us here and all of us that have been involved with this, consider yourself hugged, which obviously we would have loved to do. We would have loved to welcome everyone in a more physical way. So please understand how happy we were and how happy we are that you were all here. I would also like to remind you that the Board of Deputies has a stand, a COP26 stand, on Tuesday, right? And I'm sure that they'd be absolutely delighted to have you all visit and show you what they have to talk about. We are really fortunate tonight because we have 2 of the Echo rabbis with us, and Rabbi David Mason is one of them. And so I feel very, very privileged to turn it over to you because you're going to lead the Did I do it wrong? Oh, I'm turning it over to, whoops. I'm turning it over to Francis. Sorry, you okay now? I'm turning it over to Francis, who's going to introduce the prayer service. And thank you very much, our little fairy.
We just can't work out who's in charge here. Thank you all so much for coming and for staying on for our interfaith service, which I hope is going to be very special. We have 12 speakers from different faith traditions for you this evening, who are going to be sharing readings and meditation and some singing and a whole variety of things from their faith tradition in relation to the environment and caring for the earth. So one thing to say, we had quite a few musicians booked who've all had to cancel for various reasons, but we're very happy that we've had 2 musicians at the very last minute who stepped in as well as part of our service. So it's lovely to have you here as well. The only thing, I'm going to mention one practical thing. We decided to give you your sandwiches and soup because people were really hungry. There may be a little bit left over at the end and some water and things. So if you still want some more at the end, please hang around and we'll have it for you both downstairs and just out in the hallway. So without any further ado, I'd like to first introduce our first musician who agreed this morning to sing for you, which is wonderful. It's going to be Nick Sire from the Baha'i Faith, and he is going to be singing a prayer from the Baha'i scriptures to start our service.
Oh my God, oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants. Oh my God, oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants. Reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not to themselves, but cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art the helper. Verily, thou art the helper and the Lord. Verily, thou art the helper. Verily, thou art the helper and the Lord.
That was beautiful, thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Rabbi David Mason, who is the Jewish rabbi at Muswell Hill Synagogue in London and the founder and leader of Eco Synagogue.
An old Jewish text, the Talmud, relates an interesting incident about the sage, the rabbi, Choni HaMa'agel, Choni, the circle drawer, who once prayed for rain during a drought and refused to move from within a circle until the rain came, which it did. The righteous man, Choni, was throughout his life troubled by the meaning of the verse in Psalms, Psalm 126, a song of ascents, when God will return the captivity of Zion, we will be like dreamers. Is it possible for a man to dream continuously for 70 years? One day he was journeying on the road and he saw a man planting a carob tree. He asked him, "How long does it take for this tree to bear fruit?" The man replied, 70 years. He then further asked him, "Are you certain that you will live another 70 years?" The man replied, "I found ready-grown carob trees in the world, as my forefathers planted these for me, so I too plant these for my children." Choni sat down to have a meal, and sleep overcame him. As he slept, a rocky formation enclosed upon him, which hid him from sight, and he continued to sleep for 70 years. When he awoke, he saw a man gathering the fruit of the carob tree, and he asked him, "Are you the man who planted the tree?" The man replied, "I am his grandson." Thereupon he exclaimed, "It is clear that I slept for 70 years.
I'd now like to welcome Sister Jayanti, who is the European Director of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University.
Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to my sisters and my brothers. This question about what is it that people of faith especially can offer the world at this moment. We hear many beautiful responses, and I agree with all of them. But one particular thing, especially in this sacred place, that touches my heart is that we're there to remind people of that which is sacred. Life is sacred, nature is sacred, all creatures are sacred. And when I think of a child and the child's wonderment at looking at a flower or a butterfly, as we grow older, we lose that sense of wonder and sacredness. And so I think it's time that we remind ourselves, but also others, of how sacred this planet is and why it is our duty to love and respect nature, the planet, and every human and every creature on this planet. And I'd like to spend just a couple of moments just experiencing the power of silence, going deep within, finding that space of silence inside. And in this silence, being able to hear what my conscience tells me. Being able to hear what the Creator has to tell me. And also to hear the call of time itself. What is it that time is calling me to do? Om Shanti.
Thank you so much. We now have a reading from Linda Haggerston. Linda is the National Interfaith Officer for the Scottish Pagan Federation and LGBTQ chaplain at the University of Glasgow.
As its name implies, modern paganism was born from the memories, songs, and stories of country dwellers of old. It is a tapestry woven from many different colored strands, and its followers don't always see eye to eye. One belief we have in common, one that guides our lives, is that the earth is sacred, to be cared for and revered. Pagans will variously say that now is the season of Samhain, of All Hallows' Eve, and the beginning of a new year. It is the season when darkness grows before the fallow time, when the veil between spiritual and earthly worlds becomes thin. And although we follow different paths, we call upon our ancestors of spirit and history, blood and bone, to forgive us, guide us, and help us carry on. Today, we look to the future, asking those who meet at this time, making decisions about our planet to take into account what we already know to be true, that the earth is our mother, our father, our source, our hearth, our home, and we exist because it exists. It is long past time to stop taking for granted and destroying this home, which gives us all we need. And today, in rare fashion, we have come together to pray and to ask that instead the conferring leaders listen and they act with wisdom, conscience, and compassion for the sake of our earth, its creatures, and generations to come. So our continuing prayer is this: O Great Spirit, O sacred ones, you are the wind that breathes upon the ocean, the tide that sways and splashes upon the shore, and the creak of the boat as it gently rocks upon the water. You are the beasts of field and sea communing with the earth, winged creatures flying through the air, and the fire deep underground. You are the mountain lake and the pond in the city, the desert sands and the lava flowing. You are the kelp and the trees, the fungi and the fern. You are the arts and the discoveries of science. You are the beauty of the written and spoken word and of silence. You are wisdom, the noblest thought, the finest deed. You are the light of dawn, the shadows of dusk, moon and sun, seasons and stars. You are life. You are us, and we are you. You are all creation, and in honoring you, we affirm our devotion to life on this small planet, healing and protecting it the best we can. I'm a Druid, and to close, I share with you now the Druid's prayer. Grant, O beloved ones, thy protection, and in protection, strength, and in strength, understanding, and in understanding, knowledge, and in knowledge, the knowledge of justice, and in the knowledge of justice, the love of it, and in that love, the love of all existences, the love of the earth and of all goodness. Amen.
I'd now like to welcome Bishop Olivia Graham. Olivia is the Bishop of Reading and Christian from the Anglican tradition.
I am tremendously grateful to have had the privilege of meeting today for the first time my brother James Bhagwan from Fiji, who's reminded us of the realities of those who live in the low-lying islands of the world. And I want to read to you this evening a poem which you may be familiar with, written by a Marshall Islander called Kathy Jetnil Kitchener. She wrote this poem. She's an activist and a poet. She wrote this poem for the COP that was held in Paris. And I'd like to bring it to you this evening and follow it with a prayer. I prepared the package for my friends in the States. First, the dangling earrings woven into half moons, black pearls glinting like an eye in a storm of tight spirals. Second, the baskets, sturdy, also woven, brown cowrie shells, shiny, intricate mandalas shaped by calloused fingers. Inside the basket, a message. Wear these earrings to your parties, to your classes and meetings, to the grocery store, the corner store, and while riding the bus. Store jewelry, incense, copper coins, and curling letters like this one in this basket. And when others ask you where you got this, you tell them, They're from the Marshall Islands. Show them where it is on a map. Tell them we are a proud people, toasted dark brown as the curved ribs of a tree stump. Tell them we are descendants of the finest navigators in the world. Tell them our islands were dropped from a basket carried by a giant. Tell them we are the hollow hulls of canoes as fast as the wind slicing through the Pacific Sea. We are wood shavings and drying pandanus leaves and sticky buros at Kemmons. Tell them we are sweet harmonies of grandmothers, mothers, aunties, and sisters, songs late into night. Tell them we are whispered prayers, the breath of God, a crown of fuchsia flowers encircling Auntie Mary's white sea foam hair. Tell them we are styrofoam cups of Kool-Aid red, waiting patiently for the illuminage. Tell them we are papaya golden sunsets bleeding into a glittering open sea. We are skies uncluttered, majestic in their sweeping landscape. We are the ocean, terrifying and regal in its power. Tell them we are dusty rubber slippers swiped from concrete doorsteps. We are the ripped seams and broken door handles of taxis. We are sweaty hands shaking another sweaty hand in heat. Tell them we are days and nights hotter than anything you can imagine. Tell them we are little girls with braids, cartwheeling beneath the rain. We are shards of broken beer bottles burrowed beneath fine white sand. We are children flinging like rubber bands across a road clogged with chugging cars. Tell them we only have one road. And after all this, tell them about the water, how we have seen it rising, flooding across our cemeteries, gushing over the sea walls and crashing against our homes. Tell them what it's like to see the entire ocean level with the land. Tell them we are afraid. Tell them we don't know of the politics or the science, but tell them we see what is in our own backyard. Tell them that some of us are old fishermen who believe that God made us a promise. Some of us are more skeptical of God. But most importantly, tell them we don't want to leave. We've never wanted to leave, and that we are nothing without our islands. Let us pray. Creator God, giver of life, you sustain the earth and direct the nations. In this time of climate crisis, grant us clarity to hear the groaning of creation and the cries of the poor. Challenge us to change our lifestyles. Guide our leaders to take courageous action in these days of COP26 and when they return home. Enable your church and all people of faith to be beacons of hope and foster within us a renewed vision of your purposes for your world. Amen.
Thank you. That was so powerful. We're going to have a little moment of reflection before our next speakers. And Henry Grape is going to come and play some gentle music while we have that moment of reflection. Thank you, Henrik. I'd now like to welcome Sheikh Hassan Rabbani, who is an imam and Muslim chaplain at Heriot-Watt University and the chair of the Scottish Muslim Forum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. I share with you the greetings of peace and mercy. My particular tradition of Islam is Sufism. Many of you have heard the term Sufism, a mystical branch within Islam. And when you read the works of the Sufi masters about the environment and nature, you get a sense of importance of what nature means to them. One of the Turkish Sufi masters, sitting with his disciples one day, says to them that, "Go out and bring me a beautiful flower." So they all go out running in these beautiful Turkish gardens looking for the lale, which is the rose in Turkish. And in Turkish Sufism, the rose is very symbolic. So they all come back with lovely flowers. But his favorite disciple comes back with a dead flower. And the master asks him, "Why have you come back with a dead flower? Why did you not bring me something beautiful as the others?" And he said, "Master, as I walked into the garden, I saw each flower, each leaf, everything in nature praising God. And had I plucked a beautiful flower out of the garden, I would have deprived that flower from remembering God. So I saw one that had already fallen and passed away, and I brought it back to you." If you read Rumi, for instance, Rumi talks about that during my time when I moved from Central Asia towards Turkey, as I walked through forests, I could hear trees chanting the name of God. Or an early 7th century Baghdad Sufi who says that I spent time in the mountains and I could even hear the stones chanting the words of God. So in my particular tradition, the nature is very important, and Sufis tend to spend more time outdoors than indoors. So we like to pray that God allows us to be with those people who take care of nature. And I'd like to finish off with an important quote of Rumi. "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." So I think for all of us, when it comes to climate change, sometimes it's easier to blame the world leaders. But for Sufis, the change is always from within. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome Ravinder Kaur Najjar, who is the Sikh representative of the Scottish Religious Leaders Forum and is chair of Religions for Peace UK Women of Faith Network.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. That is the Sikh greeting. Warm greetings, sisters and brothers. It is an honor and a privilege to share some words with you this evening. When you look at the Earth from space, it is one planet. There are no borders between the seas, the mountains, and the land. It is one planet on which all species should live in harmony. As a Sikh, I am informed from the Guru Granth Sahib the Holy Six Scriptures, that the Creator and creation are one. God is seated within creation and beholds it with delight. The divine permeates all life, from the wind that blows across land and skies, to the water that flows through rivers and seas, to the forests and fields that humans rely on for food and shelter, as well as all the creatures of land and sea that depend on the earth for sustenance. I am informed from my morning prayer that our planet Earth, that orbits the cosmos with its cycle of days, nights, and seasons, is a dharamsal, a sacred place of worship, a place to practice dharam, to attune and align ourselves to the righteous way of living, which embraces and transcends our differences to enable personal, social, and environmental flourishing. Every day, I recite Pavan Guru, Pani Pita, Mata Dharta Mahat. Air is the Guru, water is the Father, and earth is the greatest mother of all. Instilling feelings of deep gratitude towards nature, which, like a parent, selflessly and lovingly nurtures and sustains human beings. As humans, the Creator has blessed us with the most exalted position out of the 8.4 million species of life across the realms of matter, vegetation, animals, and humans inhabiting the earth. Our scripture in Form 6 that human beings are honored and privileged with all of nature's resources at their disposal. We have the power to reason and the opportunity to kindle within us the latent spark of God by cultivating values, virtues, and living with integrity. As custodians of this planet, we have a responsibility to safeguard, heal, protect, and facilitate the flourishing of all life. Today, the planet's cry for help is real. It is being felt and heard loud and clear around us. Technical solutions will help, but transforming our mindset and consciousness is the vital key to make choices that will benefit humanity and planet Earth. Ultimately, it is the human mind which is the driver for sustainable change. And in this, the sixth scripture is explicit. Mantu jot srup hai, apna mul pachan. O my mind, you are the embodiment of the divine light. Recognize your own origin. The best legacy we mortals can leave behind is to ensure that our actions today result in immediate and long-lasting effects to be enjoyed by future generations. I will conclude by reciting the last sentence of the daily Sikh prayer. Nanak Naam, Chardi Kala, Tere Pane Sarbat da Phala. Says Nanak, through the ever-increasing glory of thy name, Lord, may all beings on this earth enjoy thy blessing and live in peace and prosperity. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you. We now have a reading from Robert Harrop, who is from the Buddhist community and is General Director of the Soka Gakkai International in the UK.
Thank you for your welcome. Thank you for your hospitality. And thank you all for the amazing solidarity that we're experiencing this evening. We've heard a lot about plants. I'm going to talk about one too. The Buddha often spoke to his followers about the lotus. A lotus is a beautiful flower that flourishes due to the mud at the bottom of the pond. It's also one of the few plants that flowers and seeds at the same time. And the Buddha used this plant to explain cause and effect and the creation and changing of karma, or the tendencies that we seem to have in our lives. My Buddhist practice is based on a teaching called the Lotus Sutra, which is an empowering teaching that urges action, not only to find and fulfill one's own personal potential, but to encourage others to find and fulfill theirs too. One of the reasons that the Buddha uses the metaphor of the lotus is that we are encouraged to roll up our sleeves and engage in society, or to continue the metaphor, to be in the mud. It's the mud in life which will give us the opportunity to draw on our inner resources and to transform the pond or society. Without the lotus, the pond is not such a beautiful place. Without the challenges in life, humanity will never reveal its greatest potential. One aspect of the mud, or the mud of life, is referred to in Buddhism as the three poisons, or greed, anger, and foolishness. And people are prone to these three poisons. When the poisons get out of control in an individual, we might see hoarding, or violence, or selfish ego-based behavior. When they get out of control in society, we see overconsumption, war, and damage to the natural environment. The Buddha also taught his followers to be compassionate. There are two aspects to compassion in Buddhism. First, to take away suffering and to replace it with something positive, something hopeful, something joyful. When we see suffering, we want to do something to stop it and take it away. And then we want to replace it with the antidote to the three poisons, with compassion, wisdom, courage, life force, and creativity. In one of the Buddhist texts called the Vimalakirti Sutra, the Buddha taught, if the minds of living beings are impure, their land is also impure. But if their minds are pure, so is their land. There are not two lands, pure or impure in themselves. The difference lies solely in the good or evil of their minds. We face a serious situation, a crisis, where our planet requires us to have good in our minds and to encourage others to have good in their minds. It's not the planet's fault that we're facing this climate crisis. This is our opportunity, whatever our faith position, to ensure that we tip the scales away from impure decisions based on ego towards decisions based on love, compassion, hope, and justice. This is the inner transformation, the human revolution, which is so urgently needed now. As people of faith working together, we can make such a difference. We have a responsibility to make sure that no one is left behind. The pond deserves to have the lotus in it. My prayer is that together we can transform the pond. with beautiful lotuses. Nam yo ho renge kyo, nam yo ho renge kyo, nam yo ho renge kyo.
Thank you. Now we have a reading from Mari Valjaka, who is a Sami pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland and moderator of Indigenous Peoples Reference Group in the World Council of Churches.
Good evening, everyone. Not very long ago, we weren't able to use our indigenous languages, Sami languages, in churches, in services. And even though the members of the congregation were the speakers of the Sami language, and even if the pastor knew Sami language, they didn't want to use Sami language when preaching because they thought that it's not holy enough. So we used interpreters. So these days we have a lot of good interpreters in our congregation. But anyway, nowadays it's a different situation, but it's good to remind that it's a huge thing for indigenous peoples to even hear their own languages in the services and in the churches. And also, it's a huge thing for us to be in the places like this, where we can share our stories, share our issues, and share our wisdom. In 2019, the United Nations they set the year of the indigenous languages. So the year 2019 was the year of the indigenous languages. Back then, we started to celebrate the week of the Sami languages. And actually, it is this week right now. So today, I want to read from John's Gospel, the five first paragraphs from John's Gospel in two different Sami languages. The first Sami language is Inari Sami, and we use that in my congregation, and we only have like 300 speakers left today. The other one is North Sami. It's basically our own English. We use it also in Norway, in Sweden, and in Finland, so we can communicate with each other, no matter of the borders of the countries. So that's a very convenient language for us. And also I have a prayer in North Sami, but from the John's Gospel. Alkas lei sääni, sääni lei immel kuulen, ja sääni lei immel. Jo alkas sääni lei immel kuulen, pohsoodai sääni voimin. Mihen mili shottam, ila shottam suuttaa. Sust läi ellim, ja ellim läi ulmui juova. Juovaa seutnjatasast. Seunnatas, ila finnim ton valtaasis. Alkkus lei sätni. Sätni lei itmila luhte, ja sätni lei itmil. Son lei alkkus itmila luhte. Puoh lää shattan supokte, ja alma suhaa iilä shattan mihkie tas miileä. Suu siste lei iellin, ja iellin lei ol moi juovka. Juovka päihtää seutniatasas, mutta seutniatasas iilähtään voihtaan. Let us pray. Itmil puoh siutniiteät jää paajastoalli. Kiihtu imaslas iellimis, taan puoh häämiin. Ohpah min atti arvutuu siutnaatuu saitte. Jo ehkä siutnaatussas lää etäs satki. Vähkeh min kautnan min oasi kilvin ja värjäleätkin. Amen.
Thank you. And now we're going to have another piece of music. I'd like to welcome back Rabbi David Mason, who will be singing for us now.
So I'm going to sing Psalm 121, a tune that's known to many Jewish communities, a tune where we look up to the hills and we look to God for help. We call him the Oseh Shamayim Va'aretz, the creator of the heavens and the earth. And in a sense, we're praying for God's help, not just in a sense within this crisis, but to wake up the minds of people. Because, of course, we know it's us, it's humanity that's really causing this crisis. And so our prayer to God is that humanity wakes up, humanity looks up, and humanity takes responsibility for the world that God has created. Shir Lamalot Esa Einai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Oseh Shamayim Va'aretz Alitein lamod raglecha Al yanum shomrecha Hinei lo yanum velo yishan Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomrecha Adonai Tzilcha Al Yad Yeminecha Yoimam HaShemesh Lo Yakeka Ve'yareach Ba'layla Adonai Ishmorcha mikol ra Adonai Ishmor Tzedcha uvoecha Me'ata Ve'ad olam.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Now I'd like to welcome, I'm getting further and further down here. I don't have to put it back in. I'd now like to welcome Angelito Cortez, who is a Franciscan friar in the Order of Friars Minor in the Catholic Christian community.
Greetings of peace and all good. I believe all of us here will agree with me that we are gathered here tonight because we are bringing a lot of stories coming from the people we are serving, from the people we believe that are not given the opportunity to speak. And we are bringing it into prayer as one family in the world. Back in the Philippines, when I was serving in the Conference of Major Superiors, one of my major work is to be with the people and to work with the vulnerable, especially working with the victims of the extrajudicial killings that are happening in my country. That until now, families are pleading for justice. But at the back of that story, climate change is real in countries like mine that is vulnerable. And one story that I will never forget is when I am bringing help for people, especially during calamities. Last year, when COVID started, our country experienced a lot of devastation. We experienced a volcanic eruption in January that many families needs to transfer houses and to find shelter. And then February came, all of us are experiencing the tremendous effect of this COVID-19. And I believe that the Philippines experienced one of the longest lockdown without the plan of the government. Seeing people going out pleading for money, for their food, thousands of people are jobless. And in the middle of the year, we thought it is over. But in my country, we experienced 3 strong typhoons in October and November. And we are not yet finished giving aid to the people who are jobless, those homeless, and we need to go to the far-flung areas to support those who are impacted by this climate change. And one story that I want to bring in this synagogue tonight is a story of a little girl who dreamed to bring her family into the scape of poverty where she lived. There's no electricity, and the only way for her to study is a candle. And now that everything is online, she cannot attend online masses. And then a strong storm came into their place. Everybody were helpless. After the strong storm, their house were collapsed. And the little girl wanted to go back to that place to find that school module that she worked on for a week. And they thought that the storm was over. Her father wanted to go with her. And with that module, she believed that she will survive this situation as a young student. And then the father came with her, and a strong collision of land happened. They were covered by soil right on the spot. The little girl died with her father, and the day after, her mother rushed and she cannot find the little girl and the father. And when these people wanted to dig the soil, they found out the body of the little girl and the father dead. And the little girl is holding that educational module. I believe that the little girl represents all those stories that we bring tonight. Those people who are screaming because nobody will help them. Those people who are impacted in the peripheries, the indigenous people that being grabbed with their lands and victim by minings. In my country, we have 32 active coal-fired power plants. And these are the realities and stories that we bring tonight. As one family in the world, as citizens of this world, I believe that our prayer tonight is not only a symbol, but we want to put our faith into action and to call for these leaders to do something here in Glasgow. And I want to bring all those people who died and impacted into our prayer tonight. All-powerful God, you are present in the universe in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with your peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. May the Spirit inspire all political leaders at COP26 as they seek to embrace the changes needed to foster a more sustainable society. Instill in them the courage and gentleness to implement fairer solution for the poorest and most vulnerable, and commit their nations to the care of our common home. We thank you for being with us tonight. Encourage us. We pray in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. And I want to end this with the message of Pope Francis for this Glasgow COP26, that we need to have a radical solution in the midst of this crisis. And as leaders of our own faith, our communities, we must play the big role.
Thank you so much for sharing your powerful story and reminding us all the motivation for why we're here today. So I'd like to welcome now Haldor Thorgeirsson from the Baha'i Faith, who's a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is in Iceland, who will share an Icelandic prayer with us.
Thank you very much. I will recite one of the prayers given to us by Abdul Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, the manifestation of God. I will read it in Icelandic first and then in English. And this is a prayer for humanity. Ó Guð, ó þú sem hefur varpað ljóma þínum á geislandi veruleika mannanna, úthellt yfir þá skínandi ljósi þekkingar og leiðsagnar og útfallið þá úr allri sköpun fyrir þessa guðdómlegu náð og látið þá bera skinn á alla hluti skapaða, skilja innsta kjarna þeirra, afhjúpa leyndardómana þeirra og leitt þá út úr myrkrinu inn í sýnilega heiminn. Hann sýnir vissulega sérstaka náð sína hverjum sem honum þóknast. Ó Drottinn, hjálpa þú ástvinum þínum að tileinka sér þekkingu, vísindi og listir og afhjúpa leyndardómana sem eru varðveittir í innstra veruleika alls sem skapað er. Lát þá heyra þá huldu leyndardóma sem þú ritaðir og greiftir í hjarta alls sem er. Gerð þá að gunnfánum leiðsagnar meðal allra skepna og skörpum geislum hugan sem gefa ljós sitt í þessu fyrsta lífi. Gerð þá að leiðtogum sem leiða mennina til þín, leiðsögumönnum sem vísa veginn til þín, hlaupurum sem eggja menn til að leita ríkis þíns. Þú ert vissulega hinn voldugi, verndarinn, hinn öflugi, verjandinn, hinn máttugi og örlátasti. O God, O thou who hast cast thy splendor over the luminous realities of men, shedding upon them the resplendent lights of knowledge and guidance, and hast chosen them out of all created things for this supernal grace, and hast caused them to encompass all things, to understand their inmost essence, and to disclose their mysteries, bringing them forth out of the darkness into the visible world. He verily showeth his special mercy to whomsoever he will. O Lord, help thou thy loved ones to acquire knowledge and the sciences and arts, and to unravel the secrets that are treasured up in the inmost reality of all created beings. Make them to hear the hidden truths that are written and embedded in the hearts of all that is. Make them to be ensigns of guidance amongst all creatures, and piercing rays of the mind, shedding forth their light in this, the first life. Make them to be leaders unto thee, guides unto thy path, runners urging men unto thy kingdom. Thou verily art the powerful, the protector, the potent, the defender, the mighty, the most generous.
Thank you. We're nearly there now. We've got a couple more speakers. I'd now like to welcome Aparna Ramesh, who is my colleague at Interfaith Scotland and is also the Secretary of the Hindu Temple of Scotland.
Namaste. I would like to begin with a few lines from Hindu scripture. Mata Bhumihi Putroham Prithivyaha. This quote reminds me of the relation between us and the Mother Earth. The earth is my mother, and I am her child. This relation is elaborated upon further in this next sloka. Samudra Vasane Devi, Parvadasthana Mandale, Vishnupatni Namastubhyam, Padasparsham Kshamaswami. I say this prayer every morning before I get up. I pray to the Mother Earth and I ask permission to walk on her, and I apologize for any harm I may do to her by my actions. In Hinduism, the earth is revered as mother and we are her children. I think of this relationship as a partnership that all living beings have with Mother Earth. In any partnership, for the relationship to be healthy, there must be a balance. To my knowledge, nothing teaches us more about the interdependence between a man and a woman, between mother and child, between family, between government and people, between nations, than this next sloka from one of our scriptures, Saundarya Lahari. शिवशक्त्या युक्तो यदि भवति शक्तः प्रभवितुं न चेदेवं देवो न खलु कुशलः स्पन्दितुमपि अथस्त्वामाराध्यां हरिहरविरिञ्चादिभिरपि प्रणम्तुं स्तोतुं वा कथमकृतः पुण्यः प्रभवति. In this shloka, it says that Shiva, one of the three main Hindu gods, is nothing without his other half, Shakti. They have a balanced relationship. I believe that humans have a similar interdependent relationship with the earth. Mother Earth sustains all life, and we are alive because of the air, water, land, and nutrients that she provides. For the earth to flourish, we must use her resources responsibly. It is a symbiotic relationship that must be treated with sanctity. We can fulfill this by treating the earth and all our fellow living beings with respect and kindness, and cherishing all that she provides us with. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om.
Thank you very much. Now, last but not least speaker, we have Paul Parker, who is the clerk of the UK Quakers for the UK.
I'm a Quaker. It is our experience that if we still ourselves and reflect, in the silence we can hear the voice of God prompting us to action in the world. So I'm going to bring you very few words. I'll read you a short piece of Quaker advice and then invite you to reflect silently for a short while on how God or our Mother Earth prompts you to respond. Try to live simply. A simple lifestyle, freely chosen, is a source of strength. Do you keep yourself informed about the effects your style of living is having on the global economy and environment? We do not own the world, and its riches are not ours to dispose of at will. Show a loving consideration for all creatures and seek to maintain the beauty and variety of the world. Work to ensure that our increasing power over nature is used responsibly, with reverence for life. Rejoice in the splendor of God's continuing creation.
Thank you, Paul, and to all our speakers this evening who've put their heart and soul into sharing with us from their faith tradition. Now, when I was a teenager, I remember that before I went to university, in my church group, the minister said to us, "You're all going out all over the world, but you're all to be a light a light wherever you go in the world, and to share that love of God, love of humanity and one another, and make a difference in the world. So for our closing of this service, I'm going to ask each of the speakers has been given a candle. It's kind of a virtual candle. It's battery operated, but they'll be virtually lighting the candle, and Nick's going to play us out with some more music and take that moment and time to reflect how each of us are lights in our own community and in the world and can make a difference at this time and after COP26. Thank you so much, everybody.
I really want to appreciate the presence of each one of you and appreciate the contribution of the vibrations and the energy that we're all bringing to the COP, and a very deep desire from the heart to create a wave that will affect not only our leaders so that they're wiser and wisest, but also to bring well-being to all our brothers and sisters who are suffering. Light and might.
Yes, I feel blessed being in a community like this. I hope that we all take this with us and carry all the prayers, all the thoughts, also for changing of the world that is needed. And we are in a crucial time and space, and we need everybody of goodwill to act, to come to a better future for the poor, for the coming generations, and for the creation itself. Thank you.